Hello, it's Duncan Nisbet, and I'm here with the lovely Johanna Rothman. Thank you, Johanna. How are you? You well?
Oh, yes, thanks, Dunks. It's so nice to be here.
Oh, good. And where is here for you at the moment?
Well, for me, I'm in the Boston area, and it's summertime, so it's hot.
Hot, hot, hot. I'm glad to hear that. We're still waiting for our heat wave to kick in.
Oh, it'll happen.
That's it. People keep promising me 40 degrees. I don't know what that is in your money. What is 40 degrees centigrade Fahrenheit?
Oh, it's hot. I think that's over 100 in Fahrenheit. That's really hot.
Yeah, yeah. People say that it's ridiculous and you just can't do anything, but we haven't got it yet. So let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So you were at Let's Test this year. It was great to see you again.
Oh, well, I had so much fun. It was so much fun.
Yeah, there's enough people to keep us busy, isn't there?
Yes.
Yeah. So you did a keynote called Kick-Ass Manager. I should say Kick-Ass,
Oh,
didn't
becoming a kick-ass test manager. Yes.
I?
Yes,
Fantastic.
I had a good time.
It was a great keynote. It was very energetic, and you kept the facilitators on their toes.
I did.
Yeah.
I did. I at one point said, "No, it's my keynote."
That's it. You own the room.
Yeah, I well, I was not done, and I had already I had taken questions, and I had a little bit to wrap up. So poor Larry, I did not let him stop me. So oh well.
That's it. I think everyone in the room enjoyed it. It was good to see the banter.
Yes, it was. I had a good time, and people got what they needed, which is, I mean, the reason that they do the facilitation the way that they do is to make sure that people get to ask questions. And since I had people ask questions, it was not a problem. So it worked out well.
That box was ticked.
What
Okay.
did you say?
So I said that box was ticked.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So where did it come from? This keynote. What kind of made you think, oh, I need to talk about this?
Well, all too often I see that test managers have a very victim-like mentality, and they sort of take what the organization gives them. And well, you know me, and I think that a bunch of our listeners probably know me, and I do not have a victim-like mentality, and I certainly don't believe in taking the dregs of what the organization gives us.
Yeah.
One of my favorite stories is I was a director of software quality at an organization, and at one point my VP said, "I can hire a bunch of Kelly temps to come in. I can get 20 people here tomorrow to test." I said, "I don't want your favors. That's not going to help me in what we need to do. Do not get these people in because I have no use for them." Right? I mean, it's one thing if you need a bunch of people to do some kind of testing. And at one point we were tossing around the fact that maybe we needed to do a bunch of load testing with a, a lot of people. But they 20 temps were not going to help me get the job done.
No.
That's not what we needed. We needed people who could design tests, people who could automate tests. And 20 temps were not going to do the trick. So my boss could not understand why I was rejecting his offer of help. And when, yeah, like that was going to help me.
Yeah.
And when he said, "I'm giving you people," I said, "No, if you're not giving me people who can write automated tests and do exploratory testing together." I didn't have the words for exploratory testing at the time, but I said, if they cannot work their way around the product and then write automated tests for the stuff that they will have to repeat, which is exploratory testing to explore, and then automation based on the stuff that they realize they're going to have to repeat, right?
Yeah.
I don't want them. That's not useful. You're giving me a bunch of people I first of all have to train in the product, which is going to take away time from the testers I do have, and then it's just going to take away, and then they're not useful to me. Do not give me Kelly Temps. Now, for some applications, maybe Kelly Temps are the right people, but not for mine. And so he said, you just rejected my offer of help. I said, you're not giving me help, you're giving me aggravation. So, and yet, there are test managers who would say, oh, thank you. And then they would wonder why their project would be late. Right? When they take these people in who cannot actually solve the problem that they need to have solved.
Yeah, so adding more waste almost, isn't it? Just
right. Because they don't have high commodity people. Well, when you offshore testing, like with the equivalent of Kelly Temps, you have exactly the same problem. Now, there are really smart people all over the world, right? I'm not saying anything bad about offshore outsourcing, but if you don't train these people, and if you say, we're going to have to write test cases and design test cases for these people, and then you spend 6 months designing all the test cases for these people, and you don't allow them to do exploratory testing, and you don't make it mandatory that they write automation, you have the equivalent of Kelly Temps. What the heck use is that?
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the things I said in my keynote, right? I mean, I just think it's stupid. So, all you've done is shifted the wage cost to a lower price wage. Instead of high priced people here, you've shifted the wage cost to somebody else, except now you have a very long delay time for getting questions answered. Well, now you've increased the time it takes for your project to get done, and you don't have any control over the people you have in your project. So now you're double whammied, which is a word I would not normally use with a microphone. So, so I just think that managers as a whole are not thinking about what are the people I need, how do I not become a victim, and how do I think about these problems so that I actually have a great test group, not a half-assed test group, to use the word I used in the title of my keynote.
So what was his motivation? Was he just counting test cases? It was like, right, if I give you 20 Kelly Temps, then I can run X more test cases.
Well, his motivation was, I said to him, I have 5 testers in my group, and we have 45 developers. I am understaffed, and I need more people. And he said, oh, I can get you more people. And so he actually thought I meant just more bodies. And I said to him, no, it's not a function of bodies. It's a function of highly intelligent people. So, and when I was, that's when I started to develop my hiring skills, and I became the best manager at hiring in that company. So that was the genesis for Hiring Geeks That Fit, right? My updated hiring book.
Yes.
So that I think that that's very funny, because he said, well, you can't get 10 people in by Monday. This was Wednesday. I said, well, no, I can't get 10 people in by Monday, but I'm sure I can get 5 people in 3 weeks. And he said, you can't get 5 people in 3 weeks. It takes 3 months to hire a developer. I said, well, not the way I hire people. So we went on and on and on. It was just hysterical. So, long story short, he did not last as the VP of engineering. I did last as the director of software quality. I actually did hire 10 great testers, and I did hire 5 of them in 3 weeks. And, it goes on from there.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the key standout points from your keynote was the where you did the focus of testing over the the fusion of innovations graph. Where you have the chasm, and you have the early market, and then the mainstream and the end of life. That was really good for me, because you see some discussions that go on where you have like the lean startup crowd, and you have the agilists, and you have the kind of the big system testers. And putting this graph out just really made me realise where each of those people sit, and you can understand why they have a difference of opinion, because they're looking at a product in different stages of its life. And I thought that was really good. That really stood out for me.
Yeah, I figured that I've been using this graph for a very long time. It turns out that when you want to think about which life cycle do you want to use for your project, especially if you're not willing to go agile or you cannot go agile because of your organization, you want to really think which life cycle is then best for me, and how do I make the trade-offs in my life cycle, or the trade-offs in my release criteria. And this is often a tester or a test manager's first kind of poke at the project. It might be the project manager's kind of poke, but a lot of times a tester or a test manager has to know, what does done mean for this project? Where am I headed with my criteria for my tests? Am I headed for the conservatives in my approach for this testing, or am I headed for the early market? Because if I'm headed for the early market, I'm going to think really differently about my approach for testing than I am for the conservatives. Right, because the early market, I just need to know which features are ranked high in my backlog. But for the conservatives, I don't need to just know what features are ranked high in the backlog. I really need to think about all of my regression testing all of the time. Yeah. And that's really important, because I want to think about technical debt all of the time for my conservative market. I don't want to let any technical debt grow. I want to really think about it. And I want to somehow infuse that thinking about, do not let technical debt grow into the rest of the team. So I want to somehow say, how do I think about that with the rest of my team? How do I want to have lunch with the team? Do I want to send out little emails saying something? Do I want to change the kind of measurements that I have with the team? Do I want to talk about test cases attempted, run, and passed on a daily basis, on a weekly basis? Right? This might very much change the measurements that I have, because it changes the way I think. So it's important to think about what this means.
Yeah. and as you say, take the time to break down technical debt rather than rushing out release after release.
Yeah, it at least gives you something to think about whether or not you actually change your mind. And even if you use this, I published this in Manage It, Your Guide to Modern Pragmatic Project Management, and it's in a number of articles I have on my website, because I feel very strongly that quality is context dependent, right? It's not, I've been to a bunch of conferences where people say, you know, the people on my project just don't care about quality. Well, they care about it differently than you do, right? You might be coming at it from one perspective and they come at it from another. So let's make sure we all have the same perspective and that perspective is right for this project. That's what's really important.
Yeah. And so you are on the same page.
Yeah.
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 Cool. Yeah, because after that you went on to talk about partnering with developers, and that's something I've started doing, and I find it really useful. But I also found, like the man in the monkey suit between the basketball players.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so because it was great for identifying all the requirements and any little black holes that we might miss, it was also great to have, we called it a deputy. So the sheriff would be the one partnering with the developer, and you have a deputy who had it at a kind of a higher level. So he didn't go into such detail, and he could often see stuff that you might have missed because you are in the detail. Have you found anything like that?
Certainly, I think as long as you're partnering with the people on your project, however you manage to do it, is great, right? When I was a tester, I always said, let's take a developer to lunch. I always sat with the developers on my project and said, tell me about what you did this morning. What kinds of stuff was really challenging for you? Because the stuff that was really challenging for them sometimes was very ripe for bugs.
Yes.
And if it wasn't ripe for bugs, if they figured it out, then they would explain to me where maybe the data structures change types in the middle of the code. I would want to test that, right?
Yeah.
That anything where you have a transition, that's a ripe area for testing. So I want to know stuff like that. I'm a pretty technical person. I come from the platform side of the product. So I really want to know the bits and bytes. I want to know that stuff. Not everyone is like that. No. And I totally understand if you're not like that. But because I'm a developer by training, I want to know that stuff. And I find it very interesting. So even if you're not like me, which is fine, right? How many Johanna Rothmans do we need? Only one. Thank you very much. You want to be your own person, but understanding where the developers have come from and understanding what they're doing, I think is really good. And it's not just flattering them. This is not flattery. This is really understanding what they're doing, because they might then ask you, what are you doing? And they might have some ideas about how you can streamline your testing.
Yes. Yeah.
And I didn't actually say that part in the keynote, but I got some really great ideas from developers about how I could make my tests faster and make my tests smaller and therefore do more testing. And, I gotta say, this is a good thing.
Yeah, I think once I started learning just enough of the language that the code was written in, so it was Java in this example, once I could have a conversation with the programmers in their language, sorry, pardon the pun, I started getting more respect because I was helping isolate the bugs more rather than just sort of raising a bug and chucking it over the fence to them. We were sitting together, partnering, and working out where the bug is and how far it would stretch, and then sort of not coming to a solution, but just working together to get over it, rather than, just sort of, here's a bug, let me know when it's fixed.
Yeah, developing that camaraderie, I think, really makes a huge difference. Huge difference.
Yeah. Camaraderie, that's the key word, I think, isn't it? You build a little tight unit that you are a development team together.
Yeah, and all of a sudden it's us. You've started to create a team, not a them versus you really have us, not them.
Yeah.
And I think that that's something that really makes a difference. So I really like that part of it.
Yeah. That's cool being in Spain, because everyone breaks bread together, so they all go off for lunch together. And so I kind of started joining in with that, taking my packed lunch with them, and just chewing over ideas. And that's really good, and it's kind of just does bring you together, as you say. Take a developer to lunch.
Oh, that's very good. Yeah, if that's part of the culture, that's ideal.
Yeah. Yeah, it does cause a bit of grief when a live issue comes in and everyone's off for lunch. They're like, where is everyone? So,
yeah.
That's all good. So the moving on to the tutorial then, it seems like there's quite a lot of crossover between the tutorial and the keynote. So the tutorial was hiring for the team, culture trumps skills.
Yeah, I feel so strongly about doing, about the hiring stuff, because it's the one thing that you can do that really makes a difference in your team. And a lot of people think that they're really great about hiring, and they might have a lot of experience with hiring. But what I see is a lot of people don't understand how to hire for cultural fit. I just wrote up a blog post today that I'll be publishing next week, where what they're asking is not about culture, at least not culture in the workplace. It's about culture that's personal. Well, you don't want to ask about personal culture, because the movies I want to see have nothing to do with how I'm going to act in the workplace. So it's a really, people are really kind of funny. And I mean that in the very best sense, where people do things because they think it's a good idea, right? No one does things that they think is a bad idea.
No.
But they are confused about what is a good idea and what's not a good idea. And for years, I have ranted and raved about stupid interview questions. And finally, there was an interview in the New York Times by a guy from Google who said, well, we now have years and years of data that says all those interview questions there, that said, it's that, when we ask people how many, how did he put it? How many golf balls you can put on a bus, or why are manhole covers round, or how would you move Mount Fuji? They don't actually tell us anything about how a person works. And I almost, you could hear me say hallelujah from here to Spain. So all of those things actually do not have any predictive powers in how people work. No predictive powers, none whatsoever. And so my tutorial was all about how do you actually ask questions that help you understand how people work at work.
Yeah.
And the people who came really liked it. They got a lot out of it. So, yeah.
So you took the experiential approach. Did you try to get some people to give example interview questions they've had or have tried using? to see how it went down, or?
Yeah, I asked people to tell me how they had interviewed in the past. We certainly we practiced. You know me, I always include practice in my tutorials. I went through as much as I could in one day, which is not quite everything, but I mean, it's a 2-day workshop. So my hiring thing is a 2-day workshop. So I went through as much as I could in one day, and we really had a good time. So, the people who went, I think, really got a lot out of it, and we had fun.
So was there any standout moments for you, or not, or for anyone else? Were there like any like,
As always, when we got to question design, how do you design the questions so that you understand what a person is capable of or not capable of? That always, I think, is the most fun for me. Because when I ask people to try and talk about their job analysis, it's hard unless you're actually looking for someone right away. But people can always look back and say, well, I was looking for this kind of a person, and I did this kind of thing, and it worked out or it didn't work out. But when they say, well, I was interviewing someone and I did not ask this kind of a question in this kind of way, I ground them in the reality. So I actually use behavior description questions to ground people in reality for how they should ask behavior description questions. So I kind of go meta on people, and it's very effective. It's very effective.
Yeah.
So it's quite fun. I really enjoy it. And as soon as I can figure out how to actually do this online, which I have not quite figured out how to do, I'm going to offer this as a webinar series. But I have to admit I'm not quite sure how to do this. So, because I have to build an experiential stuff into a webinar based program, and I'm not quite sure how.
No, but that would be quite a good model for the interview itself, wouldn't it? I guess you could translate the webinar of question design actually into how would you do an interview over Skype or interview in a webinar.
Yeah, I can figure out that part. There's a whole lot, though, that I'm not altogether sure how to do. So I'm working on it.
Yeah.
Maybe if our listeners have suggestions, they can tell me.
Fantastic. I'll put a link to your blog.
Oh, thank you.
So they'll be able to get in contact with you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Fantastic. So how does the balance then see the shift between finding people with the right skills and the people with the right culture?
So there's a minimum number of skills, but there's technical skills, and we always get hung up on technical skills, but it turns out that the actual technical skills, there's fewer of them than you think. And the way you ask about technical skills, there are several ways to ask about them, and you can eliminate those people in the phone screen very, very easily. But what's key is you need to ask about the essential qualities, preferences, and non-technical skills, because that's where it really gets you. That's the cultural fit part.
Yeah.
And if you don't ask about those, that's where people, if you're not careful, that's where you end up losing. That's where you end up having to fire people. And you don't want to do that because firing people is so expensive.
Right.
You have you have just lost all of the investment that you made in hiring people. So you don't want to have to do that. You want to do everything you can to find out if this person is right for you before you make that investment. And you can figure this out in not very many questions and an audition. An audition is all about behaviors at work. It's not a test. It's behavior based. So we talked a lot about that. We talked a lot about how you ask the questions, which behavior description questions are of the form, tell me about a time when, give me an example of.
Yeah.
And those are very different questions than how would you? And too many people ask the question, how would you do this? Well, how would you is a hypothetical question. And I gotta tell you, hypothetically, I'm perfect.
Yeah.
And as you and I both know, Dunks, I am not perfect.
No, neither me. That happened to me in my interview, actually. They said, how would you solve this SQL problem? And I whipped out my SQL cheat sheets that I carry with me wherever I go. And they were like, oh, that's the first time we've seen that. And I said, well, to be honest, it's too tricky. I wouldn't remember that off the top of my head. I'd probably go to a search engine and try and find the answer there. And I thought, oh, crikey, that's me done for. But it turns out that was one of the winning aspects.
Well, and I think that that's actually really smart of you, right? To have a SQL cheat sheet.
Yeah.
I think that that's a really smart thing to do.
Yeah, again, because hypothetically, you wouldn't answer it off the top of your head, would you?
No, I mean, why would you answer something like that off the top of your head? Why wouldn't you have a SQL cheat sheet?
Yeah, the internet.
I mean, something like that, where you should be able to look that kind of an answer up. That's a test, and test really is not a good audition. Right? You don't want tests as auditions. You want behavioral stuff as auditions.
Yeah.
So that's why I have a lot of guidance in hiring geeks that fit about how to create a good audition, because a test, you don't need to be there for a test. You could do that over on some website. Right? But on an audition, where they see you interact with other people, that's behavioral. And that's actually very useful. So you gotta, I mean, people still have trouble with, the difference between an audition and a test. This is why, people should read my book.
This is all covered in Hiring Geeks That Fit, right?
Yep, Hiring Geeks That Fit.
Cool. Okay. I've got one last question on that. Would the culture cover, say, a tester who was strong on the ISTQB versus a tester who was more down the new age agile, if you will? And so you're having that diversity on the team. Would that fall under culture or would that fall under technical?
Well, I think that that's more under technical. And that might be, well, or maybe it's more under culture. I think that's more about what matters to the organization, right? What's important to your organization? So that would be a cultural thing.
Okay. Yeah, and where the focus of those testers, where their motivation was as well.
Well, a lot of people want a certification because they think a certification is going to help them in their career.
Yes, somewhat misguided, right. Maybe.
And I mean, people ask me all the time, should they get a certification? And I always say, what's your goal with the certification? Right? What does it mean to you?
Yeah.
And a lot of times people tell me it means advancement, it means the possibility for more money because employers respect a certification. So I always say, if you think that it's going to mean something for your career, at least go study for it, right?
Yeah.
That's the value of the certification, the studying for it. I don't know about the rest of it, but the studying for it is certainly valuable.
Yeah, I think that's where I fell down on the IFTTB. I just did it to get the piece of paper. So the studying was minimal, and I just sat the exam and just got enough to pass, just so I could put it on my CV. It's a shame,
Yeah,
but
yeah. I mean, it really matters what you do it for. So I mean, people ask me all the time, should they get a PMP or should they get a CSM? I mean, I actually think that any of the Agile certifications are pretty useless, because there's no experience behind it. But what's really important is that you go and study, right? Taking the class is kind of useless because it has nothing to do, the Agile certifications, because they have nothing to do with actually experience. But it is useful to take a class and understand what all the concepts are.
this is what I quite like about, well, not quite like, it's what I love about Let's Test. It's kind of like you're not on a course, but you're there and you're learning all the time. The hallway conversations, the lounge chats. You're getting most benefit from actually interacting with other people and learning from their experiences and seeing how you can apply what they've learned into your context or into your work.
Right, that's what I really enjoyed about Let's Test too. I got to talk with all kinds of really interesting people and say, so tell me more about how you did this. Why did you choose to do that thing?
Yeah.
What value did it have for you?
So yeah, no, I was having a chat with Griffin because he is in a completely different context to the one I'm in. So I'm predominantly web-based and he's obviously mission critical and pharmaceutical and that other end of the spectrum. So it's just fascinating to see how he was like merging in exploratory testing and things like that. And I didn't get to go through his session, but people did, but it was quite fascinating.
Right. And it's, you can just you cannot make generalizations about all testing should be this way or all testing should be that way just because it's so different. You have to think about what is the context. And that's one of the things I really enjoy. So it's really nice when people say, oh, well, here's why I did this and here's why I did that. And that's the thing that I really enjoy about Let's Test.
Yeah, I my boss flew me out there, which was nice. And I said, I'll don't come out my training budget. I'll be happy for that. And he was umming and ahhing for a bit. And I spoke to Henke about it. And he said, well, if you need a piece of paper, I'll print you off a Let's Test certificate to say that you attended and that you passed. I thought that'd be quite humorous to go back. And so there you go. I went on a Let's Test course, and this is my certificate.
Yeah,
Much like the PSL certificate, you put on it what you got out of it.
right. I think it's really important to say, here's what I got out of it. Here's one of the things I got out of it. I mean, I went to a bunch of different sessions, and what I do when I go to a conference is I say, when I reflect back on it, what did I get out of this session? What did I get out of that session? And I try to get one thing out of every different session. So, I get to reflect and I actually think of the meals, the sessions also. So I'm kind of particular about my conferences. But I had a wonderful discussion at every single meal. I got something out of every single session. And I think that when you can say that about a conference, when you can say, I got something out of every meal. I had a wonderful discussion out of every meal. I could pick up one nugget out of every single session. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah. It's the value for money.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right, so you're also a prolific writer, I think it's fair to say. How many books have you got under your belt now?
I don't know. I haven't counted.
Have you run out of
Well,
things?
part of it is that manager job search is in beta, and I have a developmental editor right now. So, because I have a developmental editor, I believe I will get that done this summer. So I guess I guess it's 5 books done, 1 in beta, and I'll be starting another one that will be available on LeanPub sometime this year. So, I am, because Hiring Geeks That Fit is done. It will be in print sometime in the next few weeks. So, because it's at the indexer right now. So, at some point, that book is virtually to bed. But, it'll be available in print soon. And Miniature Job Search is the next one to get done. And then I'll have it will go to, I'll be doing a real it's been in beta forever, but now that I have a developmental editor, I have a shot of doing a real beta, and then it'll go to copy editing, and then it'll go to all the, to final editing, and then to ebook, and then to print, and then, the whole shebang. And then while that's going to print, I will, even before then, I have been writing a whole bunch of stuff about program management. How do you do big agile? And that's the focus of my next book. So Agile and Lean Program Management, Collaborating Across the Organization. So that will take me a little while. I don't exactly know how long it will take me, because I tend to write books kind of organically. It's whatever deserves to be in that book will be in that book. So I have the 5th in a series of blog posts coming out hopefully next week. We'll see. And then we'll go from there.
I've been sharing those blog posts with my boss and the development boss as well. Managing in a program, because I think we're in a similar boat, and we've got like 6 or 7 teams, all having a different layer of the hierarchy, the structure, and just all on different ideas of what they should be doing and how they should be developing. And so you're trying to draw those together, and it's just confusing.
Well, it is confusing, and so, good. Then I hope that you are finding this useful, and I will probably ask you then for your opinions later, because this is you are not alone. This is really, and I find that there are other frameworks out there, but for me, they are not agile. And I find that anything that requires you to use a Gantt chart, I just find offensive. So I hate Gantt charts. I never used them when I was managing projects, and I don't see why I have to use them in an agile program. I just think that that's wrong. So I'm not going to ask people to use them. I just think that that's a wrong-headed way to do it. And I understand that there are people who need some prediction. So, the metrics post that I'm working on is an attempt to say, I understand that people want to know something, and so here is my work in progress about that. So I do believe that there are people who want to know this stuff, and I figure if I can make my post sufficiently intriguing, that people will buy this book that I'm serializing.
Definitely.
So
that's coming out on LeanPub, is it?
Yes, I'll be publishing that via LeanPub.
I do like the LeanPub model. Buy a book and you get the updates as and when they're ready. I like that.
Yeah, and I figure if I can attract people enough by writing this stuff and telling them here's my thinking, and if you like it, then here's where to go for the book. Then I figure that this will be valuable to them. So that's what I'm doing.
So just going back to manager job search, we kind of skimmed over it quite quickly. What's that about?
So manager job search is about how to use personal Kanban inside of 1 week iterations to get organized and stay organized. Because the problem with a job search is that it's this big, complicated project. Because you're personal, you're so concerned about your, all of your self-esteem is tied up in your job search. And it's so easy to get your self-esteem all discombobulated. I think that's the technical term, discombobulated.
I like it.
Yeah. And then I think it's so easy to get all hung up in your shorts. Then I find that personal Kanban is a really good way to work yourself out of stress and keep the flow going. And so that's what I use for myself. And I was realizing that, a lot of people said to me, well, hiring geeks that fit is really good for looking at your job search. And I thought, well, it's kind of good for looking at your job search, but it doesn't have the system for looking at a job search.
Right.
And people were asking me, how do I find a job using hiring geeks that fit? And I said, it's not the right model for looking for jobs. So I thought I should actually write that book. So that's the book I'm writing. So that's what that book is.
Cool. And so you've written some books in the traditional method, and you've written some books through the LeanPub method. Which do you prefer?
Well, both sets of my books are written so I can see them as I proceed. Right? All of my books are written so I can see what I'm doing as I go. And that's really the key. So I don't write a book without being able to see the results as I proceed. I almost went with the Crags again for manager job search, but we could not come to an agreement on the contract, which was quite disappointing to me.
That's a shame.
Oh, boo-hoo. So I did not sign a contract with them. I was all set to, but we just could not agree. So that's just the way things are. You know,
the way the cookie crumbles.
Yeah, I mean, I was all set to, but we could not agree, so I didn't. But I was all, until at some point, I suspect that I might be able to again, but until that happens, I will continue using LeanPub.
Cool.
Yeah.
Good. And so let's test Oz. You reckon you'll be going?
Well, only if they invite me. I would love to be invited. I really had a great time at Let's Test in Sweden, and I really enjoyed it. It was so much fun, and I learned so much from the people who were there. So if they invite me, I will definitely go.
As I'm trying to work it into a family holiday, so I've got to try and work out how to pitch it to my boss that it's worth sending me, and I've got to convince the family that they want to go to Australia, and so I'm stretch it out for 3 weeks, go and do a bit of travelling.
Well, I bet that, I mean, I think the key is that you learn so much at Let's Test that, how could you not go?
Yeah, yeah. It's just another fantastic location as well, isn't it? The Gold Coast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. So that's all I have to talk about. Is there anything else you'd like to get off your chest?
I don't think so. I think we've covered just about everything.
It's been a fantastic chat. I've really enjoyed it.
I have too. Thank you so much.
So yeah, thank you for your time, Johanna. I appreciate it. It's precious, and I hope to catch up with you soon.
I hope so too. Thanks so much. Thanks.
Okay, all the best. I'll catch you later.
Okay, bye.
Bye bye. Bye.